she jumps, but it seems like she fell. So then she fell, and then nothing.
So I needed to swim around, and I know how to swim. Like I can swim. I just freaked out. I just froze, and the water was so dark.
Like she started drowning, I was like, oh, this might be the last day we shoot. This might be this might be the last scene ever.
We didn't create a video for 1945 because in my mind, 1945 chronologically exists within Rooms. It's almost like a little drabble of like what the emotional state was during the saga of Rooms.
Rooms is cool. Rooms was one where we got to play with how far we could push the bounds of what a pop song should sound like.
I just have this like old voice memo of like, oh, Rooms piano. It's just the piano part of Rooms. And like sometimes I'll listen to it and I'm like, wow, that really like developed into something like more beautiful than I could have ever imagined.
Valerie has a very powerful voice, so especially working throughout these songs, I was cautious and hesitant to manipulate too far and get rid of what was already there and what I wanted to highlight essentially in these pieces of music.
I just love how she did these kind of like operatic kind of background vocals. And I just remember the lyric, like, your surrealist hold on the tides of my mind, say goodbye to your moon for good. Psh.
But seeing it kind of happen on screen gave it new context for me. And so what I wanted to do was create that storytelling of how, you know, April was kind of experiencing, you know, these different moments in the music. So how 1945 came in and kind of interrupted the sensation of Rooms, I think was something that really only existed in the film. It didn't happen on the record. In the record, they're individual pieces of music, but at the beginning of 1945, there is the radio interruption, and there's that component to it that I think I was able to develop a lot more, seeing a visual to it and having something to follow. And I think that added a bit of depth to those two pieces of music, to really give context to how those two pieces of music relate to each other.
We shot Rooms actually twice. So the first time we shot it was in the Airbnb in the cabin, and it was really cool. But we liked how it looked, but it didn't feel realistic enough because the original idea was for it to be on a sailboat. So we ended up renting a sailboat. It was, you know, we only had a couple hours on the sailboat, and so we were working really fast and trying to be very efficient.
We had a scene between Kali and Valerie that we ended up reshooting in the actual sailboat, but I saw that as rehearsal for her, really. And I really like the involvement of Kali in the production because he had so much experience as an actor.
She was very clear on what she wanted the actors to do, what her vision towards Nicolas when he would film or whatever. That was awesome. But like on the acting side of it, I thought she was awesome because it was just very natural and I think, or something that I've noticed when people say that they haven't done acting as their main thing, or that's not really what they focus on. It does help that whenever you're doing a scene or any sort of project and it requires improv, there's no script attached. It's just you put in a scenario and then how would you react if this happened to you? I think it just helps that person act more naturally because you're not trying to pretend to be someone else.
It was really easy to work with Gali, who played Ryuji, the love interest, in that portion of the film.
That was so cool, seeing Ryuji in the boat. That was my favorite scene from other parts of New Foundry because it was just so cool to see how the entire boat just looked so realistic on film. You know, sometimes filming on the actual boat can be difficult because there's a lot of things that are out of your control with the wind and, you know, with the sun, and you don't know if it's gonna rain, and it can be very hard to like kind of cross your fingers and hope that it turns out good and it portrays like through the camera that way. So being able to like really see how that all came together with the boat was really interesting.
That was just really cool because I've never would have imagined like being on a freaking boat, doing like something for a music video. So that was already amazing. But the experience itself, acting wise, was very interesting. At first it was just a little nerve wracking, but I got comfortable with it. And it also allowed me to like go and explore in places that I haven't explored before.
I noticed that there were different scenes within that music video that was kind of like a progression of the relationship, and seeing like how you come apart and then come together and come apart and come together. And so it kind of reminds me of like the waves of a boat, where it's like up and down and up and down, and how that is really integrated within the actual scene and the set.
As part of the music video, we wanted there to be a moment where Ryuji and April are playing chess, and for this to kind of signify like the crumbling of their relationship. And so it was almost like this like weird game of chess with like where the rules were unclear and like the pieces, you know, moved in strange ways, right? Not the rules changed, almost like there wasn't like clarity onto like how to play this game of chess.
I really liked how the actual board wasn't like a board, it was like a projection. And the way that was formed, like, it always just amazes me, like, when I go on any sort of set, like it's sort of like movie magic, the way that you make things, right? Whether it's through sound, through lighting, and I'm always amazed by the creativity that it just takes to create those sort of things that people don't think about when they're watching any sort of movie, you know?
There was a moment though that when we were shooting, it was the last scene, it was the last shot, and we were kind of in like a break, and I told Valerie, okay, so this is the jump. And Valerie was like, jump?
And I was like, it's time for me to do what? Like, what do you mean? Like, I was like, wait, what? And I remember being so scared.
And I was like, but you were the one who put it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you don't want to do it, I mean, but now we have this footage and we had to have something.
But I was like, all right, I'm just gonna jump in the water. I'm gonna do it anyway. And I jump in.
She jumps, but it seems like she fell. So then she fell, and then nothing, silence.
I witnessed from the back because I was in the back of the catamaran, and all I saw was my cousin, and she jumped in the water, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Y después quería salir, pero no había escalera.
So I needed to swim around, and I know how to swim. Like I could swim. I just freaked out. I just froze, and like the water was so dark.
Then I was with Jimenez, who was our production assistant, and the captain, and he was like, hold my hand, and I was like, what should I do? Should I leave the camera on? What should I do? And I was like, yeah, okay, I leave the camera.
I was so in shock. Like, I wasn't scared, I wasn't in fear, I was just in like, my mom is with me, my sister is with me, and mom was like, Kali, like, I don't know, like, maybe you should, like, jump in there and get in the water. I'm like, Mom, like, that water is freezing cold. Like, you expect me to get in the water right now? With these clothes that I have? Like, I don't know. Obviously, if Valerie's life was in danger and she was about to die, then I would jump in the water. Like any human being should and would.
And all I see is the cameraman and other people behind the scenes pulling her up, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I was laughing, guys, I could laugh. I was laughing because I'm like, ay, 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 pobrecita. I feel so bad for her, but like, it was just so much like for her.
Y ese mar oscuro, picado, todo. Entonces, no, simplemente le dimos la mano, la sacamos y todo, o la ayudamos a salir.
So it was traumatizing. We were like, "Oh, you're right. Yeah." I remember she was like, "Oh, okay." And she looked at me. She's like, "Did you get it?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, "But why?" And she was mad. And I was like I couldn't take anything.
And Nicolas was like, no, you swam under the boat. Like, what did you expect? And I was like so disoriented that I was just like, you know, I thought I was doing a good job. Like, I thought I was doing what I needed to do. And I just,
Like, she started drowning, I was like, oh, this might be the last day we shoot. This might be, this might be the last scene ever. And then it wasn't, but I'm glad.
Funny Girl was also one where we needed to be on a boat, a different type of boat, a dinghy. So at the end of Rooms, at the end of this like failed relationship, April dives into the water and she, swims to the bottom of the ocean and she finds another door. And this is the door that leads her to Anchorage and to have all that craziness with the pirates and that recap of all the turmoil. She jumps off the pirate ship and we're back kind of in like the present, which is Funny Girl.
I remember the prompt because this is the one that stuck out to me the most, was make it a sea shanty. I didn't know what that meant. So I had to find out what a sea shanty was, and come to find out it's very pirate, yo-ho type of feeling. So not only was there the rhythm of the chants and everything, but we wanted to feel like there was a crowd singing with us. We had our crew. There was these small details we tried to add to really make it feel like, yeah, we were at sea. There are pirates singing this song. There's a crew here. So I remember, I sung on this one. I laid my vocal. I remember this is one I think we played with our tone a lot. So we were recording different takes while we were holding our nose, while we were singing out of our chest, out of our head. We were creating all these different goofy tones with our voice to really amalgamate this mass of voices so that it sounds like a group of people. And it was fun because I think we nailed that with essentially just two of us in the room.
And Funny Girl, it's more like a little bit closer to reality in the sense of like she's drowning, she's stranded, she's lost at sea, she's like, what do I do now? And along comes Santiago, this character who, so he's based on Santiago from The Old Man and the Sea. That's why I named him that. And he sees this woman drowning and struggling, and he's like, I'm gonna save you. But he isn't necessarily interested in helping her just because he wants something. He's interested in helping her because he wants to help her.
Being on that boat, if there was something very, the word's not climactic, but rather it was impacting, definitely impacting, just because it felt as though I was saving somebody's life in that moment, and it was such an impacting moment just because you were making that lasting effect on somebody else. So the emotions that I felt while I was on that boat was definitely one of full transparency, of kind of like surrender to that other person, of, hey, I'm rowing here for you. I know we're in the middle of what seems to be nowhere, but I got you. This boat, it's not going down. If I'm going down, if we're going down, you can float on me. We're good.
So finding the dinghy was very difficult because, we were looking it up okay, small wooden rowboat, small dinghy, small. We couldn't, we had no knowledge of how to acquire a boat that essentially isn't very functional. In real life, it's an older type of boat. It doesn't have a motor. It's kind of interesting.
It was actually the last day of shooting. I think we were actually about to buy a piece of trash that looked like a boat and adapt the story, something like that. And I was like, you know what? If by Monday we don't get something, like, just change it. My mother was like, okay, but it was one of the okays that I know that she was like, no, I'm gonna have to fix this. And yeah, so I think the following day, like 9 a.m., she called me, she's like, we found it. And I was like, what?
I remember my husband and I were looking for it, and we went to this marina where we went into the dive shop, and the people who were working in the dive shop said, well, I know somebody who knows somebody who's a diving instructor, and he might have a dinghy.
It was really tricky in the sense that the water, of course, was crazy that day, and we had to move their boat to my angle so I can have their faces and the expressions. So we had to repeat that like 3 or 4 times. And it was like about to get dark, I think. It was like 5 p.m. So we were running. Well, not running quite literally, but we were struggling a lot to get the shots.
And it was perfect. It was this cute little boat, and it was exactly what we needed. And so on the day of shooting, on the day we shot it, we went out. He towed us out in the dinghy, in his inflatable dinghy. We got in the small boat. Nicolas got in the inflatable dinghy, and we just shot it that way. And it was, I mean, we were fully out there, like in the water.
So it's definitely, given the sunset, the setting, the company that was bringing all of this to the screen, I felt very just moved to be there.